You've seen the future, and not only is it frightening, it's also deeply mediocre.
Oh, are we the games or the gamer?
No, stop, please. On February 14th, the artist Travis Bott dropped their Jack Park Canny Dope video on YouTube. Yeah, you heard me right, Travis Bott, not Travis Scott. Why would we talk about hip hop on a show about AI? Because Travis Bott is not human, he's an artificial intelligence. And is an AI that learns by devouring. It swallowed every track Travis Scott has ever recorded to work out how to make this song, from instrumentation to lyrics. A song composed by a bot might seem pretty cool, but I'm not gonna lie, right now, artificial intelligence is terrifying me more than it fascinates. Because sure, producing a few Travis Scott style songs is not that scary. But imagine for 1 second, artificial intelligence can do some seriously dangerous stuff, like replicating convincing propaganda to spread misinformation, or even making an AI version of a Drake album. Don't do that. As it happens, AI is everywhere in video games. And I mean everywhere. From a blade of grass that moves in the wind, to the elite soldiers that have lifelike behavior. Sure, it depends on the game you play. When a character glitches into a wall, it's not always super realistic. Speaking of grass, thanks to AI, No Man's Sky and Minecraft can offer extremely varied environments. When you're a programmer, you call that procedural generation. Or if you have the soul of a poet, control random access. I mean, the soul of a poet who's also a maths professor. Basically, the AI is given a few rules to follow, and it manages on its own to create an infinity of universes. According to some scientists, that's what happened during the Big Bang. Obviously, when we talk about AI in games, we're talking about NPCs and enemies. Back in the day, the AI is rather passive and would move in simple patterns. Take, for example, the 1981 classic Donkey Kong. The behavior of good old Donkey Kong confined him to throwing barrels at Mario at regulated intervals. But 39 years later, we're facing guys who shoot you with grenades if you stay covered for too long. Last time I was really impressed by an AI, it was in Echo. No, not that insufferable dolphin on the Mega Drive. That guy had no intelligence, artificial or otherwise. I'm talking about the game released in 2017 and developed by Ultra Studio. In short, you find yourself in the middle of this huge palace whose decor is a mix between 2001, A Space Odyssey and The Matrix Saga, to bring the love of your life back from the dead. The problem is the place is filled with robots that take two things from you during the game. One, your appearance, and two, your abilities. Basically, if you jump over a guardrail, shoot from the side, or shoot a robot discreetly from behind, the AI will record it and play those exact same movements against you. If you manage to touch your nose with your tongue, bam, the AI does it too. Finally, a game where the bad guys are just as bad as me. To sum up, we are our own worst enemy. Pretty handy when you don't have any friends to play with in multiplayer mode. In the world of video games, AI is not just there to scare you or harass you when you're hidden. More seriously, for example, AI is behind the enhanced super resolution generative adversarial networks, a system that took me 17 takes to be able to pronounce it correctly, and which allows you to restore old video games by polishing the textures a little bit. Basically like a cosmetic surgeon for video games. It's also the AI that Google uses to eliminate all traces of latency from Stadia, their video game platform. The same goes for IBM, which uses AI to streamline VR by letting you literally talk to a game or application.
How you doing?
As you may have noticed, artificial intelligence is increasingly present within the gaming industry. Maybe one day it will even beat me playing as Eddie Gordo in Street Fighter.
That's Tekken.
That's what I said. Hello and welcome to Talk, and this month we're talking about artificial intelligence, and I am joined by Octavius, British YouTuber and Twitch streamer, and also they review really bad games amazingly on their channel, and John Robertson, comedian, author and Twitch streamer, and also the creator of live action game Darkroom. Good, got it right. Just making sure.
Seamless.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about AI, so let's get into it. Are you afraid of AI?
Constantly. I have the old sci-fi fans' paranoia at all times, and despite the fact my data is of no value, I fear corporations taking it.
Seriously?
Oh, always, constantly. And yet at the same time, I've got an Alexa, I've got a Google Doc, I've got Siri. How do they know everything? I never understand this.
So, no then?
Oh no, I'm genuinely terrified, but I still have all of these things.
Do you think there's rationale behind the fear that people have about AI developing consciousness and taking over the world?
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's going to be like, you know, oh, you haven't called your mother in 2 days. I'll call her for you now.
I mean, that
would seriously mess me up. I'd not be happy with that. That's like my worst nightmare.
Well, yeah, it's also like the plot of every single bit of science fiction. People just seem to really like the idea of, well, there's a power that we can't understand, and in this case, it might automate your life for you, and it couldn't possibly, have emotions the way humans have emotions that will put you through hideous things. Like governments do that one already.
Oh,
and they're already people.
So if we bring this to gaming now, when it comes to, for instance, 1991's Lemmings, the player was directing the AI creatures, but 30 years later, has the situation flipped where the AI is now guiding the player, even in sandbox games like Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's fine. It's fine.
But it's true though, right? Because you're in a sandbox game.
Are we the games or the gamer? Oh, sorry, have I just offended somebody who was writing this? Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Was your mind being blown, or were you being assassinated from several different directions?
I think, I don't know what that was.
It was that fateful day in Dallas that took out JFK.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cut that.
Let's talk about the dark room, right?
Okay.
Because with that game, you have many, many choices, but are you guiding the player to the choices? The AI guiding that player to make the specific choice? And I've heard it's really hard.
Well,
thanks very much.
Well, yeah, hello. Look, there's no artificial intelligence in the dark room because it's me. So me as an NPC and every NPC and the entirety of the game. So I'm a simulation of a simulation. And I am leading the people towards the things, but I'm also very actively trying to kill them. And this will give you a rather unique perspective on what it's like, or what an artificial intelligence is meant to do in a game, because it's this constant, like, I want to beat you within the rules of this, but I also want it to be fun. But then because it's me and I'm subject to human failings, I also just hate people after a while. So it becomes like, while the script might be, oh, okay, you've walked over there, you've walked into a spike, you're dead. Because that person's been, repeating themselves for 15 minutes, I now know a lot about them. So there's a lot of really vituperative personal abuse.
Wow.
So yeah, imagine a game that can form a relationship with people and then doesn't like those people. That's what I do.
Wow. I mean, I don't know what to say to that.
That's okay. No one does. Box office isn't
It just
great,
sounds like
to be
play my
honest.
game, but also I will murder you and I don't like you.
Well, yeah, but you have to keep all of that in the spirit of it still being fun.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like...
So yay.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But then that'll remind you with the game. Like you could go, oh, a game. Oh, the game's cheating. They go, no, the game's just playing a game.
Yeah.
And so much of modern game design is, look, we've spent a lot of money on how cool this is, so you're going to come to this bit.
Yeah.
Come over here.
Yeah.
Look, there's, look, the studio went bankrupt. This is a second studio that's bought it out. Have a look at this background. It's amazing. Cutscene time. And yeah, my game is me after a while. I'm the same. I don't have the money, but it's me leading you towards the more interesting things just because I want to see them too.
What about you, Octavius? Do you think in sandbox games you're being drawn to an area just because of the AI as well? Or do you think it's just...
Well, I was taking the mic, woke and everything, but I mean, I actually have been studying this as part of my master's degree, the kind of idea of what is the game and what is the player and what is the performance and how it all interlaces and everything. Myself and John, we did a stream about this a while ago, as part of the essay, talking about how you become a part of a performance of a game, and then where it is the performance ends, is the performance ending at the controller? Does it end at the TV screen?
Yeah.
It's really quite interesting to get into that.
Yeah, you can think of like games as theatre. Where,
Indeed.
Yeah, but it's the only type of... I think Dara O'Brien made the point that games are the only type of entertainment that you can win or conceivably be good at. And sometimes how much of it you see and how much you get to enjoy sometimes depends on just how well you've done within it.
You cannot be bad at watching a movie. You cannot be bad at listening to an album. But you can be bad at playing a video game. And the video game will punish you and deny you access to the rest of the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas you sit down for any unit of entertainment, well, that's 2 hours of content.
that's it,
and
yeah.
it does it for you.
Sure, and it's not necessarily the visible AI that is making the constraints for you either.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it depends on what AI is. I mean, how you would define it.
Yeah, well, I mean, AI in gaming doesn't mean AI. It just means the simulation of artificial intelligence, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately AI is still a series of if, this, then that, kind of. I mean, for example, like Lemmings in the 90s. I don't know if I'd call that AI. That's really more a case of like scripting, but then other people would call it AI, wouldn't they? I mean, it's like Conan on the NES.
Yeah, Conan on the NES.
The enemies in that, they don't know what they're doing. They've got no clue. But I mean,
there's been a lot of development in that, though. The NPCs back in the day just had a timer. You know when they're going to attack you and stuff like that. And then now it's, you know, they know where you're hiding. You can't hide behind the wall for too long and all of that stuff. And even the environment will push you towards things if they can't like feel you standing in an area for too long.
I always remember the first time I played Skyrim, and I was so excited, and I spoke to my father-in-law about this, and I was just going, look, we went to a tavern. Of course we killed everyone. It was great. You won't believe this. 3 hours later, an assassin showed up. Well, of course I killed him, right? Had a look at the note he was carrying. It was because I'd killed the person in the tavern.
Love that.
Right? And he looked at me and he went, the machines know. That was his thing. And I remember it's like the first time, this was my first sense of AI in a game was that exact moment. And I spoke to someone, I was like, yeah, so what is that? Is like the other character existing as an intelligence and it's heard the news? And they went, no, John, what's happened is it's written if X, then Y. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's
basically.
But it's a simulation and that's fine.
I love that when games do that because it means that you have an effect on the actual world and it continues after that. I think we're now moving towards the area of the player affecting the game as opposed to just playing a set environment or rules that stays the same regardless. And I really love that. I think that's so important. It really allows the player to affect the game and the story changes upon whatever you choose to do. So that's one part of AI I do enjoy because I'm kind of past the kind of games where you're just playing the game and it doesn't change regardless of what you've done. So for instance, with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I know that it doesn't change depending on the gender that you choose, but depending on who you choose to kill, it changes who can follow you and what happens in the world. Like when the heretics and the zealots chase you, you can actually do an effect that stops them from doing that if you don't kill this dude. So it's really important.
But that stresses me out a bit because like this is how I ruined, I can't remember which Fallout it was. I think it was Fallout 4. I ruined it for myself because someone was like, oh, you need to go over here and chat to this bloke. And I went there and I was like, oh wait, I massacred this entire village about an hour ago. Now everyone's dead. And you're like, well, what
do you do?
Yeah.
But I mean,
real life consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
But this kind of classifies a little bit as emergent gameplay. I mean, it'll let you do it. It'll let you massacre the people, and then you can just walk around in the sad, burned, stunted reality you've just created, which I bloody love.
Yeah,
you know, I love to do. But like that's its
you
own...
love chaos.
Yes. Well, that's my way of playing a game. Is okay. You can see the parameters. To hell with those. And that, you know, this is everything that I love. So when I see the constraints of here's the scripting or the constraints of the artificial intelligence, I always lose my mind.
So you've just mentioned if X then Y, which happens in a lot of procedural generation or controlled random access in games such as No Man's Sky, Minecraft as well. And do you think if there's enough if X then Y, if there's so much of that built on top of each other, that it then becomes like a real world for people and it becomes feeling like consciousness, like an actual environment? Does it mimic reality?
It becomes enough of a reality. It becomes a little reality that they can invest in. I think the idea is, where people sometimes become concerned is how much of that can you put together before it's actually indistinguishable from human intelligence?
Yeah.
And then that becomes the plot of every single cyberpunk manga I've ever read.
Do you think it's too dangerous to let AI develop on its own? Do you think it can learn by itself and then generate its own rules?
Well,
is that possible?
I think that's what people have been attempting to get. Well, not people, just everyone. We're all aiming for that to become just one giant nested if statement. I mean, looking back on history of gaming, there was this game called Rise of the Robots.
It's futuristic battle action and strategy as never before.
It was in the mid-90s, and that was supposed to be the AI game. The game. And essentially what the developers were doing, they were using this thing that they call tables in the magazine interviews. It was basically just an Excel spreadsheet with nested if statements. But it was supposed to be the most realistic AI, and that was a case of a million if this then that, if this then that, and it was like this new amazing thing, and it was dire. It was so bad. And I think it was because there was too much of if this then that. It wasn't concentrated enough. But then at the same time, this idea of this uncanny valley thing in terms of AAA games, there is a level where it's going to become a bit too creepy, where there's going to be too much of this, if this, then that, isn't there? Because do we really want games to reflect real life so much? Like, at what point do we go, okay, no, maybe this is a bit creepy, you know? Like, I mean, it's a bit like, you know, I have this thing where whenever I play a game like Breath of the Wild, I don't like killing the animals because I hate killing animals in real life. So I genuinely, I feel really bad about it. So it's that kind of thing, you know? Like moving into it, like at what point am I going to start playing Hitman and be like, I don't want to murder that guy?
Well, that defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
The well-known pacifist run of Hitman. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, could you just leave?
Get out.
Terribly sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't want to kill you.
Such a British thing.
I've been sent here to shake you by the hand. Welcome back to another Polite Man, I believe they call it. A great game.
Would you be for an AI that oversees other AIs?
My logic is undeniable.
And prevents them from dominating the world? Like, would you be for... Do you think humans need to be involved in AI?
I mean,
I know we make it, but...
Sorry to bring up Rise of the Robots again, but that's the entire plot of Rise of the Robots. There's some overseer AI, which turns out it gets a virus, and all the robots are going mental. Like, Rise of the Robots is seeing into the future.
But what you're saying is you've seen the future, and not only is it frightening, it's also deeply mediocre.
And it's got, like, an enormous crotch as well.
Okay.
It's this robot. It's got the main character of Rise of the Robots has got a massive package. Anyway,
Yeah, he does have a pendulous.
You can cut that if you like.
Why?
But why does it have a package? What's it going to do with it?
So he's supposed to be a cyborg.
USB?
Yeah.
No, stop, please. What advances in AI in games do you think will happen within the next 5 years when it comes to development? Developments like cloud gaming and Stadia and stuff like that. What do you foresee happening?
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, you're playing Witcher and then suddenly, like, it guesses that you're hungry, and suddenly there's an NPC just going like, oh, I can't find my Netflix, and you got to go find it. And totally, it's future.
We've all lived through the video game where it's like, wait a minute, those are real world products being advertised to me on the racetrack.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of playing just an online RPG, for instance, and then suddenly encountering characters who could be people, could be bots, but have an abiding interest in dominoes.
Just because of your cookies, or?
Well, no, I just mean, because of your cookies, or just something like that. Because that's always my main concern when I think about any new technology, is that it's principally either used by a government or, more likely, a large commercial enterprise.
Most likely.
Yeah.
That's what scares me, though. I don't want my favorite lip gloss in my MMO. Like, why am I seeing that? And that's the thing with AI, you know, and again, it's going to go into like policy of data and cookies. But I know a lot of games are definitely trying to look into moving forward with this advertisement in games. And I think even for kids, I'm thinking about that, and I'm just wondering how dangerous is that? Yeah,
it's blurring the lines a bit too much, isn't it? I mean, I think our generation of gamers, for example, I was playing Final Fantasy 15, which is terrible, but there's like this sort of side quest where you go and it's a woman from, I think it's Xenoblade Chronicles, not Xenoblade Chronicles, well, some other game anyway. And it just annoyed me because it was a different game and different characters and different ways of moving and everything. And there's an expansion like that in Breath of the Wild as well. That one's for Xenoblade Chronicles. And it just annoys me because it takes you out of that world,
the immersion.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. But then I suppose if you grow up with that kind of thing, I mean, but then again, we grew up with, you know, that ridiculous, we had all sorts of games about food and that, like McDonald's had a game.
But what we had,
that's true.
Kids.
But what we had was games that were advertising.
That's right.
And obviously advertising. Whereas this gives you a fine opportunity to, you know, whatever you grow up with will be normal for you. So, you know, you see this with how kids consume games. You see this with it's like when we do Darkroom, when I'm playing it with kids don't understand that when you die, all progress goes away.
Because they haven't grown up with that.
Yeah, that's it. They go, no, but we got the thing. We unlocked the thing. It's like, no, you didn't save the game. What is that? It auto-saves. You know?
That's so true. That's so true. Do you think when it comes to AI that we are going to be having whole new experiences with games? If, for instance, with Fortnite and children playing Fortnite, that they are going to just be completely different from everything that we've already experienced. And, you know, concerts in games as well. You have Travis Scott in Fortnite exactly as well. So are they going to pick up your music tastes and put them in game and use that for correlation to then put these activations in game?
I mean,
that could be an algorithm from your cookies that you bring in.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, look, all we're really talking about is what advances in mining a bit of personal data can be turned around and put to use so that you're surprised because it looks like the game's just doing it spontaneously. And look, anything that companies can do to make money will just happen.
Do you think there are any recent games that are good examples of where AI is applied and it's given you a good experience when you're playing it?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of some games where it certainly served its form. I'm currently enjoying the Hitman trilogy and, having a fantastic time. But those people are just puppets. And because the game encourages you to just walk around and just realise, oh no, that person walks exactly there in exactly the same time. And that's lovely. It's also what makes them easier to kill because they're transparently not real. Which it's very basic, but it's doing exactly what it needs to do. So there's a real artistry
The timed
there.
regulated intervals, you know where it's going to happen. So it doesn't make it feel like it doesn't give you that experience of, oh no, I don't really want to kill them because they're acting normally. So is that where the line is drawn, where that lifelike behavior is in game compared to where the old regulated intervals then makes you feel better about AI in games? Is that where that line is?
It's like what I was talking before about when we're doing Darkroom and you have to keep a sense of we're playing, right? So part of it is I've drawn you in, but this is not real. You're being continually reminded that this is artificial.
Yeah.
It's like the joy of a glitch to go, oh, well, I'm not a cowboy. Oh, I had no idea.
Horse can fly.
My horse is a person. Oh.
I think it's quite interesting really when you look at genres because different AI work well in different genres. So for example, what I'm thinking of is the AI in the Mass Effect trilogy. I mean, the AI in the Mass Effect trilogy was so good in terms of the relationships you need to make with these other people. And then, I mean, literally, I got to the third Mass Effect, realised that the guy that I wanted to bone, I couldn't bone him because I hadn't talked to him in the first game. So I went and played the entire thing again because I have no life. And I got with him in the end, so it was cool. But I mean, there's that kind of AI, which has its own rules, but you're able to manipulate them in a certain way to make it feel lifelike. But then you have the AI of the alien in Alien Isolation.
Woof, that game.
Don't even get me started. Okay, now the AI on the alien is excellent because it is so incredibly lifelike. And if you use it with an Xbox and you have one of those Kinect things, it can hear you, which is terrifying. So obviously I had to turn the Kinect off when I was playing it because I'm just hyperventilating, seriously. But you run into a locker and it's like, you see it going around.
That game caused me anxiety, like literally.
Yeah, it's horrible, but that is an excellent example of AI.
It really is.
Horror games need to have a brilliant AI like that.
They are though. They are definitely developing a lot more responsive AI. So I don't know if you've ever played Phasmophobia.
Yes, I have.
Oh,
absolutely.
Good. Yeah, so that game kind of reminds me of similar to Alien, where the ghost will know where you are. It will haunt the area where you're hanging around. Those kind of games, I think AI really applies well in horror games. Like,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what I would like to see in terms of artificial intelligence development there is because if we've got something that has the capacity to know where you are and to make some presumption as to your emotional state, because of course it does, these things behave in manners designed to make you afraid or, that's a loud sound, so you'll rush there or you'll be behind, and all these pre-programmed behaviors. That means that you can build NPCs that will build different relationships with players. And I think that's great. I mean, I remember falling deeply in love with Lydia, my housecarl, in Skyrim. And all she did was just come with me on adventures, say the same 5 things. But I remember when she died, right, my wife turned to me and went, "You load up a game where she's alive." And that was it. We went back.
Your wife said that?
Oh, yeah. There was like, no, we lost 2 hours of progress to bring. And that was someone whose behaviour was clearly scripted. And, just they will always be there. But just through time, we developed a sense of loyalty. So having a thing that has just more of an awareness and more of an ability to act on the possibility of feeling.
Do you think that's dangerous, though? Have you ever seen the movie Her?
No.
Okay, it's about this man that falls in love with, his AI.
Oh, yes. No, I have seen it,
Joaquin Phoenix. It's really interesting. And do you think there's a danger of that? Of people falling in love? People already fall in love with game characters and anime characters.
Oh, definitely.
So if we're making them more lifelike and having that lifelike behavior, I think we might see some chimera, some hybrid stuff in?
Well, absolutely, but I'm sorry, you go.
Well, I was just going to really bring the tone down by saying that, so I think one of the reasons why the first time I realised I was depressed was when I realised that I couldn't be part of the game Final Fantasy VII. And I think that there is a danger of you genuinely can fall in love with a game character. I mean, I still fancy Sephiroth, but because you would, wouldn't you? No, John.
No one-winged angel for you.
But there's an entire community of people who are genuinely, seriously in love with anime characters, with game characters, and it's a physical feeling. It's a need, it's a want to be there. And me being age 13, realizing I'm never going to be part of, this fantastical world, never be able to visit Cosmo Canyon and all of that kind of thing. It genuinely killed me. It really did. It really set off the depression. So it's entirely possible to fall in love with an AI, certainly. I mean, people do it anyway, don't they? That's the whole scamming thing, isn't it? I mean, people can send money to bots.
And all that as well.
Exactly.
So there recently was a film called Sunspring, which is written completely by artificial intelligence. Do you think the same could happen in games, and what do you think the result would be?
Yeah, it could. It could absolutely happen in games. Initially, it would seem like a fairly mechanical exercise. It may just be a mash of different things, like this is what has happened and therefore, and then Johnny, protagonist, goes and shoots various villains of various stripes. And yeah, you might find that by taking a whole lot of data, suddenly, you're just seeing a series of hideous cliches coming towards you that have weird and wonky faces or something. But yeah, eventually it will, probably just be able to duplicate exactly what we're into, especially for a commercial interest. Like that could happen already. I mean, like a cover shooter game doesn't really need that much of a story. It just needs a place that people can go and play and shoot and swear at each other.
And that's the thing with some games, they really elicit human emotion. So do you think that would be happening with the AI if they were programmed by a human? Then is that possible?
Yeah, because so much of what we're talking about is people falling in love with representations, and it's also whatever you spend time with and enjoy, you will form an emotional connection to of some type. So like, because I've now 500 times asked Alexa to give me a timer, I've come to recognize its voice and it recognizes mine. So we've, as a result, formed a relationship. And same with you getting depressed with Final Fantasy VII. Those are those graphics. I remember the first time the cutscene finished, right? My wife just started laughing and just went, "Turn it off. We can't play this. This is ridiculous." The little doll people are having a walk, right? But as long as a human enjoys something and sits there long enough, yeah, absolutely.
So this is another sad story, but there's a lot of content on the internet, a lot of content on websites is made by what we call in the SEO industry content spinners. Usually it's by a bot, or it'd be by someone like me who was a grunt and just sort of like read something and retyped it in a different way. And that's also how they make spam comments. Seeing quite a lot on WordPress blogs. They can take information from the website itself. They can take information from the actual content of the page, and then they could say, "Oh, I really liked how you did this there. This is a really good blog, I'm going to share it with my friends," whatever. And then you get people saying, "Oh, thank you so much, thank you." I mean, that's a very basic algorithm that's really simple. So even if we just got all of the bots that did that, we could make an awesome game. Okay. It'd be amazing, just a pure spam bot game, and it'd be hectic, but I think it would definitely elicit a reaction.
Of course, it knows how to do it.
Yeah,
and again, if X, then Y.
Yeah, exactly. And if all you need is that information that's on that particular web page, and you can grab that, you can scrape it, and you can pull that information together and form sentences quite easily.
Scary.
It is.
Well, yeah. I mean, what we're just talking about is a game that goes, "Oh, you're playing. Well, here's everything I think you like," and it'll be
exactly that's personal profile,
and it'll be right.
That's just reminded me of a game that I really want to talk about. There's this game on the Dreamcast. It's terrifying. You need to play it. It's called Seaman.
Yep.
It's this game where you have to look after this horrifying fish creature, voiced by what's his face, lad from Star Trek.
Leonard Nimoy. Yeah.
No. That's the Leonard Nimoy is in it, but he's the narrator.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which one?
It's the other lad.
Who plays who?
Oh my guy, what's he called?
George Takei.
George Takei, yes, that's him.
Oh,
fabulous.
Okay, yes,
so he voices this weird fish thing, right? And the Dreamcast, it had this add-on which you plugged into, I believe, the controller, and literally you would be like, "Hi, Seaman, how you doing?" And he'd go, "I'm okay. How are you today?"
In what month were you born?
October.
You were born in October?
And then you tell it about your life. You tell it about all the stuff you're going, and then he'd say stuff like, I think you need to talk to this person about this and let them know how you feel. And then if you didn't go back to the seaman after every day, it would die in the tank and it'd forget everything about you.
Okay.
But it was able to learn so much. You could have full-on conversations with this seaman.
So the game was based around the conversation.
Yeah, and it learned. It was still kind of basic at the time, but it learned, and it was able to make this real. You were able to make a real relationship with this weird George Takei-faced fish. I mean, it's horrifying, but I want a remake of Seaman. It'd be amazing. I want to talk to this. I want to talk to it.
You miss your fish.
I do. This is what I have a year of lockdown. I want to talk to a fish. I want to have a chat.
We're going to get you out, okay? Don't worry about it. All right, we're going to move on to a quiz. We're going to test some knowledge here. So the questions are multiple choice, one right answer. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. What reward does the GLaDOS AI offer to people who have correctly passed the test phases in Portal? A, lollipop, B, a medal, C, a cake, or D, a box of 4 aloe vera day creams?
Yeah.
Cake.
Yeah, you right.
Your victory is a lie.
And you cake as well?
Yeah, cake.
Yes. Okay, both cake. What games are most often used to test AI? A, table tennis, B, chess, C, Rubik's Cube, or D, Settlers of Catan?
Is it chess?
And what are you saying?
The tennis one.
It's chess.
Oh.
Oh, good.
You're doing well.
Well, if it was
2
bloody
points,
tennis, then the
2
AI was
points,
just...
John?
Well, that was the first gaming.
That was
AI,
the first game.
tennis.
Yeah, no, I know.
Tennis for 2.
Yeah, no, but they wouldn't still
Look
be
at me
using
making
it.
out like I know what I'm talking about.
No, it worked. It worked.
Next question. For real-time battles, the AI system is based on methods taken from a famous book. Which one? A, The Prince by Machiavelli. B, My Friend Flicker from Mary O'Hara. C, The Game by Neil Strauss. Or D, The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Nah.
I think it's D.
Yeah, is it the Art of War?
Yeah, you're both right. It's The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I didn't know that. That's so interesting. In 1997, a machine, IBM's Deep Blue, beat the world champion of chess, Garry Kasparov. What did he say after his defeat? A, artificial intelligence makes us more human. B, I will now practice alone against AIs. C, screw AIs. Or D, my career is over.
D, probably.
I want to say...
I mean, I'd be so depressed, wouldn't you?
I think it was B.
I will now practice alone against AIs.
Yeah.
Both wrong.
Oh.
Actually said artificial intelligence makes us more human.
Well, it's very
Does
good
it?
that his PR person wrote that for him.
Last question. An AI also beat 2 of the world's best StarCraft 2 players. How did it do it? A, it copied the players' techniques. B, it cheated. C, it watched and synthesized over 100 hours of playing. Or D, it insulted the mothers of the players to throw salt in their game.
I mean, it was C, but I want it to be D, obviously.
Yeah. If it was C while doing
Could
D
you
as
imagine?
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would
That'd
have
be
been
awesome.
exactly like playing an actual person. That's all we need. You know, it's just brilliant.
Some extra behaviour.
Some brilliant strategies and the occasional your mum joke. That's a human.
Yeah, you're right. It was C. So I believe, John, you have the most points out of that round.
Oh.
Well done, John. Congratulations.
Oh, no. Oh.
John is now qualified as AI.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's been a really great conversation talking about AI and learning as well. Learned a lot from this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now it's time for our top 5. Our top 5 of games in which AIs were a real pain in the neck. Let's start with Pokemon. Be it tall grass or dark caves, these little critters appear everywhere and without warning. Representing all 897 pocket monsters, our 5th place goes to Zubat. Oh no, not again. Always with the Zubat. 4th place goes to Navi from The Legend of Zelda. To be fair, she can be quite useful and tells us where to go when we're stuck, or how to find an enemy's weak point. But why in God's name does she keep saying, "Hey, listen"? Navi, honestly, I am listening and there's no need to repeat yourself every single second. Don't even get me started on mobile phones in games. You just know they'll start ringing at the exact moment you don't want to be answering the phone. Stupid thing can't even be set to mute. Prime example for this kind of annoyance, the good old cousin from GTA 4, who calls us all the time wanting to meet up. Take a hint, Roman. At number 3, it's got to be Emma Emmerich from Metal Gear Solid 2, representing all the poor players having to do escort missions. It'd be stressful enough just to guide her through the game holding her hand, but this nutter won't even hide when the enemies show up. Did no one tell her it's a stealth game?
I suppose that being a specialist in neural AI and complex logic played a significant role in your association with the Metal Gear project.
First place goes to our AI partners in Resident Evil 5. You can choose between Chris or Shiva, but it doesn't make a difference. They are both controlled by the same terrible AI. They will do their best to stand in your way. They will use all the best stuff for your inventory. They need you to rescue them constantly, and God forbid you need their help. They just love letting you die. Great fun.